His voice was a howl from the wilderness, a primal, soaring sound that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the Pacific Northwest. It was the voice of a generation's angst, a perfect blend of metallic grit, melodic beauty, and a searing, heartbroken honesty. For over 3 decades, Chris Cornell stood as one of rock music's most dynamic and enigmatic figures, a poet of despair and a prophet of hope. He was a rock god with a near 4-octave range, but also a man haunted by demons he spent a lifetime battling. His story is a poignant, complex symphony of immense talent and profound struggle, a tale that would end in a silence as sudden and shocking as a scream in the night. Christopher John Boyle was born on July 20, 1964, in Seattle, Washington. His childhood, by his own admission, was difficult and lonely. He was the middle child of 6, born to a pharmacist father and an accountant mother who would later divorce when he was a teenager. The family name was Boyle, but Chris and his siblings would eventually adopt their mother's maiden name, Cornell, a symbolic attempt to forge a new identity. As a child, he was deeply introverted, a self-described loner who found solace in the vast, imaginary worlds of his mind. He spent 2 years in his youth, between the ages of 9 and 11, lost in the basement of a neighbor's house, obsessively listening to a large collection of Beatles records. This solitary immersion in music was a formative experience, a lifeline that pulled him from the depths of his early depression. His struggles with mental health and substance abuse began frighteningly early. By the age of 13, he was a daily user of alcohol and marijuana. At 14, a traumatic experience with PCP led to a severe panic disorder and agoraphobia that left him largely housebound for 2 years. He would later credit his mother with saving his life during this period when she bought him a snare drum, an instrument that became his first true outlet. It was a physical release for the mental anguish that had consumed him. Music became his therapy, a way to channel the chaos in his head into something tangible, something beautiful. He dropped out of high school and worked a series of blue-collar jobs, a fishmonger, a busboy, a sous chef at Ray's Boathouse, all while nurturing a secret ambition to become a musician. It was a humble, grounded existence that stood in stark contrast to the fame that would later consume him. The Seattle music scene of the mid-1980s was a fertile yet gritty landscape. It was a world of rain, flannel, and cheap beer, where a new sound was beginning to ferment in basements and garages. Chris Cornell, with his powerful voice and brooding intensity, was at the very heart of this movement. He met bassist Hiro Yamamoto and guitarist Kim Thayil, and together with drummer Matt Cameron, they formed Soundgarden in 1984. Their sound was a visceral, thunderous assault, a blend of heavy metal's Sabbath-esque riffs, punk rock's defiant energy, and a psychedelic haze that felt distinctly Seattle. But what truly set them apart was Chris's voice. It was an instrument of astonishing power and range, capable of a guttural roar on tracks like Beyond the Wheel and a haunting, ethereal melody on Fell on Black Days. His vocals were the engine that drove the band, a lightning rod for the raw emotion in their music. Soundgarden's rise to prominence was a slow, deliberate climb. They were pioneers, one of the first Seattle bands to sign with a major label in 1989. They were the elder statesmen of a new scene, a band that had been grinding for years while others, like Nirvana, exploded onto the scene in a blaze of glory. Their commercial breakthrough came with the release of their third album, Bad Motorfinger, in 1991, which was followed by the genre-defining masterpiece Super Unknown in 1994. The album was a critical and commercial triumph, a dark, sprawling work of art that was hailed as a grunge classic. Songs like Black Hole Sun and Spoon Man became instant anthems, and Chris Cornell became a rock icon. He was the handsome, brooding frontman, a rock god with a godlike voice, and a poet who wrote lyrics of despair and alienation that resonated with millions. In the midst of Soundgarden's rise, a deeply personal and creatively fertile side project emerged. In 1990, Chris, along with future Pearl Jam members Stone Gossard and Jeff Ament, formed Temple of the Dog as a tribute to their late friend, Andrew Wood, the charismatic frontman of Mother Love Bone, who had died of a heroin overdose. The album, which also featured a young Eddie Vedder, was a beautiful, soulful tribute, a raw and heartbreaking lament. It was a project born of grief and camaraderie, a departure from the heavy sound of Soundgarden. In it, Chris showed a different side of his talent, his voice soaring with a tender, soulful vulnerability on songs like Hunger Strike. It was a powerful, beautiful moment that showcased the depth of his artistry. Music critic Robert Hilburn would later write, "It's a testament to his talent that he could be the snarling frontman for Soundgarden and, on the same record, deliver a ballad of such exquisite, wounded beauty as Say Hello to Heaven." Chris's personal life during this period was also a whirlwind. He married Susan Silver, the manager of Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, in 1990. They were a power couple of the Seattle music scene, a partnership that was both personal and professional. Their marriage was a foundational chapter in his life, and in 2000, they welcomed their daughter, Lillian Jean. But the pressures of fame, the relentless touring, and the unspoken weight of his internal struggles took their toll. After years of friction and unspoken pain, Soundgarden disbanded in 1997, a painful decision that left a deep emotional wound. The split was a devastating blow, and it sent him spiraling into a period of deep depression and a relapse into alcohol abuse. His marriage to Susan also ended in a bitter divorce in 2004. He would later reflect on this dark period, admitting that he had to change virtually everything in his life to pull himself out of the hole he was in. Out of the ashes of Soundgarden, a new supergroup was born. In 2001, Chris joined forces with the instrumentalists of Rage Against the Machine, guitarist Tom Morello, bassist Tim Comerford, and drummer Brad Wilk, to form Audioslave. The band was a massive success, a thunderous blend of hard rock riffs and Chris's powerful vocals. Their self-titled debut album was a commercial triumph, and they toured the world, playing to sold-out arenas. For a time, it seemed like a fresh start, a new chapter for an artist who had been struggling. He was clean and sober, having gone to rehab for alcohol abuse in 2002. He had found love again with Vicky Karayanis, a publicist he met in Paris, and they married in 2004. With Vicky, he had 2 more children, Tony and Christopher Nicholas, and for a time, he seemed to have found the peace and stability that had eluded him for so long. He was a dedicated father, often speaking about his children as the light of his life, but the demons of his past were never truly vanquished. The struggle with addiction and depression was a constant looming shadow. Even in sobriety, the pain was always there, simmering just beneath the surface. He was an artist who wrote about his struggles with a raw, unflinching honesty, but in his personal life, he often kept his pain hidden. The public saw a rock star who had it all: fame, family, and a new lease on life. They saw the Grammy winner, the man who wrote the theme song for a James Bond movie. They didn't see the man who, as a child, had spent years in a state of crippling anxiety and agoraphobia. They didn't see the man who was constantly battling a sense of existential dread. He was, in his own words, faking when I get it right, a lyric from Outshined that now feels like a heartbreaking confession. The end came in the most tragic and shocking of ways. In 2017, Soundgarden had reunited and was on a successful North American tour. Chris, by all accounts, seemed to be in a good place. His final performance at the Fox Theater in Detroit on May 17, 2017, was, to many in the crowd, a powerful and moving show. But to some, there was a sense of unease. His wife, Vicky, who had spoken to him on the phone after the show, would later report that he sounded different, slurring his words and acting erratically. He told her he had taken more of his prescription anxiety medication, Ativan, than he should have. Concerned, she called a security guard to check on him. It was too late. In the early hours of May 18th, Chris Cornell was found dead in his hotel room. He was 52 years old. The cause of death was ruled a suicide by hanging. The news of his death sent shockwaves of disbelief and profound sorrow around the world. The silence was deafening. The rock community was left stunned, his fans heartbroken. The public outpouring of grief was immense, a shared sense of loss for a voice that had been the soundtrack to so many lives. His funeral was a small private affair at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, a somber and heartbreaking gathering of family, friends, and fellow musicians. The man who had lived his life so publicly and so loudly was given a final, quiet farewell. But his death also ignited a painful conversation about mental health and addiction, a raw and unflinching look at the struggles that had plagued him for a lifetime. His wife, Vicky, in a later statement, would attribute his death to the effects of the prescription medication, arguing that it had altered his state of mind and led to a moment of terrible judgment. The tragedy of his death was not in the end itself, but in the long, painful journey that led to it. The legacy of Chris Cornell is a complicated, beautiful, and enduring one. His voice remains a timeless fixture in the pantheon of rock, a unique instrument that could convey a universe of emotion in a single note. The music of Soundgarden, Audioslave, and his solo work continues to inspire new generations, their songs a testament to his immense talent. He was an artist who could sing about pain and turn it into something beautiful, a musical prophet who spoke of love, loss, and defiance with a voice that will never be silenced. But his legacy is also a poignant reminder of the hidden struggles that often lie beneath the surface of fame. The myths and mysteries of his final days will likely never be fully unraveled, but the truth of his life is simple. He was a brilliant, fragile soul who used his immense talent to connect with millions. He was a man who sang of black days, and in the end, he fell into one of his own. His legacy is a symphony of light and shadow, and in its final, heartbreaking chord, we find a truth that is both beautiful and tragic. Some voices are simply too powerful for this world,